She stepped out of the limo dressed in quiet defiance, 3 identical boys at her side, each with his eyes, his chin, his impossible smile. And as the billionaire watched from the church steps, the past he buried walked straight into his father's funeral. Thank you for sticking around with me, my wonderful story family. If you're already hooked in for today's story and ready to enjoy it, click subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from, because tomorrow I will be giving you another story just as interesting as this one, and you don't want to miss it. Now let us begin. The morning light filtered through thin curtains, painting soft golden stripes across the modest living room. Crumbs from breakfast still clung to the edges of the kitchen counter. Tiny shoes lay in a disorganized pile by the door. Over it all hovered the steady rhythm of life, held together by quiet resolve. Selena knelt on the floor, fastening the last Velcro strap on her son's sneaker. "Matthew," she said gently, "remember, no fighting over juice boxes today, okay? Let your brothers have first pick." Matthew grinned, cheeky. "Even if I got there first?" "Yes, even then." Her voice was calm, practiced. She kissed his forehead. That's what being the oldest means. He was older by just 6 minutes. The triplets darted off in a tangle of giggles and footsteps. Selena stood slowly, her back aching in that dull, familiar way. She moved to the small kitchen table where a weathered envelope lay, ivory parchment, thick with formality. In loving memory of Reginald Hartwell, beloved father, philanthropist, and chairman of Hartwell Industries. The funeral was today. The name sat like a stone on her tongue. Reginald had been more than just Julian's father. He was the only member of that family who hadn't treated her like a phase. A man of rare warmth and blunt wisdom. He used to say, "Sometimes the richest thing a man can give is his time." Her fingers traced the ink of the invitation. She hadn't planned on going, but last night she'd made a decision. Not for Julian, for Reginald, and maybe for the boys. From the hallway, Matthew's voice rang out. "Mom, what should we wear?" Selena turned, eyes still on the envelope. "Black," she called back, "and something that still lets you run." Across the city, the penthouse smelled of bergamot and oak wood, the air clinically perfect, expensive, sterile. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the skyline, but the room felt like it had never known laughter. Julian Hartwell adjusted the cuffs of his bespoke black suit, watching himself in the mirror. The tie was slightly crooked. He didn't bother fixing it. "Babe," came a voice from the bedroom, velvet-wrapped in disinterest. "Are you seriously not taking a car with me?" Vivian appeared in a form-fitting dress that seemed designed for a gala, not grief. Her lashes were too thick for crying. "This is going to be all over the tabloids. We need to look unified." Julian turned away. "It's a funeral, not a photo shoot." "Same difference," she muttered. He ignored her and walked out, phone vibrating in his palm. Another message from the PR team. Another request for a statement. Another opportunity to control the narrative. But how do you spin regret? The elevator doors opened with a soft chime. As he descended alone, Julian closed his eyes. A memory came uninvited. Selena's laugh, warm and honest, echoing in his first apartment. No marble, no staff, just takeout containers and her head on his chest. He shook it off. He didn't have space for ghosts today. The church was a cathedral of shadows and silence, the stained glass windows painting solemn halos across rows of designer black. Men in tailored suits exchanged somber nods. Women dabbed at dry eyes. Julian stood near the altar, stiff as stone. The eulogy had been said, the flowers arranged just so. His father lay at the front, in a polished oak casket, surrounded by opulence that felt completely wrong for the man. He would have hated this, Julian murmured. A low hum rippled through the pews. Whispers, shifting bodies, heads turning toward the back of the church. Julian followed their gaze. The doors opened, and there she was, Selena, stepping into the sacred hush in a simple black dress that clung to her waist like memory. Her hair was pinned back, her eyes forward. She walked with grace, not confidence, but grace earned through survival. Behind her, 3 boys, identical, striking, curious, held hands. And Julian Hartwell forgot how to breathe. He blinked once, twice. They were 8, maybe 9. All 3 had his dark hair, his angular jaw, his unyielding gaze. Carbon copies of the man he used to be, before suits and silence replaced his soul. Vivian leaned in, whispering, "Who the hell are they?" He didn't answer. Selena walked straight to the casket. She knelt, touched the edge with reverence. Each of the boys followed suit, bowing their heads. They didn't glance at Julian. Not once. But the damage was already done. Everything he had buried beneath years of indifference, luxury, and pride surfaced, like grief, like guilt, like love that never truly died. What would you do if someone you once loved returned, with proof of everything you left behind? Let us know in the comments. Does Julian deserve a second chance? Or is it too little, too late? The church seemed quieter now, as if everyone had stopped pretending they were here for the man in the casket and had started watching the drama unfolding among the living. Selena didn't flinch under the weight of 100 eyes. She'd worn her pain like armor for nearly a decade. A few stares couldn't crack her. But when she finally rose and turned, her gaze swept right past Julian, as if he were just another mourner, a stranger. It stung more than any scream would have. The boys, Matthew, Micah, and Milo, trailed behind her in unison. One of them adjusted his tie with a flair so familiar it made Julian's chest constrict. That was his move. A tiny unconscious flick he did before board meetings, dates, public speeches. Jesus Christ, he whispered under his breath. Vivian leaned closer. Julian, what's going on? Are those... I don't know, he lied, his voice low, controlled. Maybe someone else's. Kids can look like anyone. She arched a brow. 3 of them. Julian stepped forward, needing, against all logic, to say something. Anything. But Selena walked past him like he wasn't there. Selena. His voice broke the silence like glass. Not loud, just sharp enough. She paused. Not out acknowledgement. More like the way a person stops when they hear something they thought they'd left behind in another life. She turned halfway, her face composed but her eyes cold. I wasn't sure you'd come, he said. She nodded toward the casket. I came for Reginald. He deserved that. The words hit him like a slap. She hadn't come for him. Not even a little. Julian looked down at the boys. 3 pairs of dark eyes staring up at him with blank curiosity. They had no idea who he was, what he'd done, or hadn't done. Are they? His voice caught. Yours. Selena blinked. Is that really your first question? It was a knife disguised as a sentence. 10 minutes later, they sat in the front pew, Julian beside Vivian, Selena in a separate row with the boys. The tension could have broken glass. The pastor spoke of legacy and love, of family. Julian couldn't hear a word. All he could see were the triplets sitting perfectly still, heads bowed. One of them reached for Selena's hand and whispered something. She smiled gently, brushing his curls away from his eyes. That smile, he hadn't seen it in 9 years. And now here it was, given so easily to a boy with his cheekbones. He felt Vivian stiffen beside him. You look like a damn ghost. Don't, he whispered. Julian, I swear to God. You knew, didn't you? You knew about them. I didn't, he said quickly. I swear I didn't. Outside the church, a few photographers had gathered. Tabloid vultures who always knew where to sniff for scandal. One of them shouted something crude about the ex and mystery kids. Selena turned away, shielding the boys with her body. Julian's got twisted. He marched toward them, jaw clenched, motioning for security team to intervene. One of the boys looked up at him, Micah, maybe, and tilted his head. You're that man from the big picture, the boy said, pointing to a billboard across the street where Julian's face advertised Hartwell Industries' new tech division. Julian chuckled, stunned. Yeah, I guess I am. You look shorter in real life. The boy replied flatly, then ran back to his brothers. Selena said nothing, just watched, but something flickered in her eyes. Amusement? Pain? He couldn't tell. In the private reception afterward, the elite filed into the Hartwell Estate ballroom. Glass chandeliers, white-glove servers, a string quartet playing songs no one really listened to. Selena stood by the fireplace, arms crossed. The boys wandered to the dessert table, where 3 miniature chocolate mousses vanished in 30 seconds. Julian finally approached her. "No cameras here," she said without looking at him. "You can drop the mask." "I didn't know, Selena." She laughed, short and bitter. "That's the problem, Julian. You never asked. You never checked. You left, and you never looked back. I thought you moved on. You told me to go. You said, I was pregnant." Her voice cracked. "I found out 2 weeks after you walked out. And I knew. You wouldn't come back if I told you. Not really. Not for the right reasons." He was silent. "I raised them alone," she said. "I worked nights. Took odd jobs. Reginald sent money sometimes, quietly, without your knowledge. He said he owed them that much. But he made me promise never to tell you unless you became the kind of man who could handle it." Julian swallowed hard. "And today you think I am?" She finally looked at him. "No. I came because a good man died, and my boys deserve to say goodbye to someone who cared for them, even from a distance." Then Matthew appeared beside her, tugging her arm. "Mom, can we take one of those cookies? The ones shaped like violins." Julian looked down at him, heart pounding. "What's your name?" The boy blinked. "Matthew." A name they'd once dreamed of using. A name whispered in pillow talk, when life still held possibilities. Julian dropped to one knee. "Hi, Matthew. I'm—" He hesitated. Matthew tilted his head. "Are you a friend of my mom?" Julian's throat closed. "I used to be." Comment below. Should Selena let Julian into the boys' lives? Or is it too late for apologies? The ballroom's air had thickened, not with music or chatter, but with tension, taut and heavy, coiled between 2 people who once knew each other better than anyone, and now stood like strangers across a polished floor. Selena moved through the crowd with practiced grace, accepting condolences, fielding polite stares and not-so-subtle questions from women who remembered her as the one before the model. Every time someone glanced at the boys and then at Julian, she caught it, the flicker of realization. She didn't flinch. She'd been preparing for this moment for nearly a decade. But that didn't mean it didn't hurt. Julian, meanwhile, couldn't breathe. Not properly. He stood near the bar, untouched drink in hand, eyes locked on the triplets as they marveled at a decorative sculpture like it was made of gold. He'd barely spoken to them. They didn't even know him. And Selena, she wasn't making it easy. Every attempt to speak to her that afternoon had been deflected, politely but firmly. "I have nothing more to say, Julian," she had said under her breath, back near the church. "You've made peace with the version of me you left behind. Let that be enough." But it wasn't. It couldn't be. He needed to understand. Needed to be seen. Not as the man who'd left, but the man who might have changed. The man who might still matter. Vivian wasn't helping. She cornered him behind a marble column, her voice sharp and laced with panic. "She's doing this on purpose," she hissed. "She waited all these years just to ruin this day." "This isn't about you," Julian said, brushing past her. Vivian grabbed his arm. "Oh, come on. 3 look-alike children showing up today? At your father's funeral? She's staging some kind of revenge." Julian pulled away, his voice low and cold. "It's not revenge. It's reality." Vivian laughed bitterly. "And what's that make me, then? The side dish to your real life." He didn't answer, because the truth was, he didn't know what Vivian had ever been to him, other than convenient. "Don't do something stupid," she warned, heels clicking as she walked off. "You have everything to lose." He watched her go, then looked back at Selena. Maybe he already had. Selena was in the garden now, trying to catch her breath. The triplets played by the koi pond, throwing pebbles and naming the fish things like Professor Giggle and Fishy Smalls. Their laughter should have lightened her heart, but all she could feel was a storm brewing behind her. Julian appeared like a shadow cast too long. "I'm not leaving," he said softly. "Not up to me," she replied without turning. "You're angry?" "I'm hurt," she snapped, then lowered her voice when the boys looked over. "There's a difference." He stepped closer, hands in his pockets. Suit jacket, slightly wrinkled from tension. You think I didn't wonder? That I didn't feel something was off when you cut all contact. You didn't fight for me, she said. You barely fought with me. You just left. Chased your next ambition like love was an obstacle. You told me to go. I told you I wouldn't beg, and you took that as permission. There was silence between them, thick, weighted. Everything that hadn't been said was pressing against the space between their bodies. Selena crossed her arms. You've had 8 years to show up, Julian. Not one letter. Not one call. I didn't know. You didn't ask. She turned to face him now, fire rising in her eyes. You don't get to be the victim in your own abandonment. His jaw tightened. You think this is easy for me? No, I think it's late. That's worse. Inside the house, someone handed Selena a letter. Reginald's will executor. She glanced at the name on the envelope. Her name. Julian noticed. He left you something? She nodded but didn't open it. He always kept his promises, even when his son didn't. He flinched. One of the boys, Micah, ran up holding a crushed flower from a hedge. Mom, look, it's shaped like a heart. Selena smiled, dropping to his level. You're right. That's a special kind of flower. It only blooms when it's been through a little damage. Micah grinned. Like you. She froze, stunned by the purity of the words, then laughed through the pain. Yeah, baby, just like me. Julian watched, aching. Later, as guests began to leave, Julian made one final attempt. I want to be part of their lives, he said. Whatever you think of me, the boys deserve more than a ghost of a father. Selena looked at him, tired but steady. They deserve truth and consistency. Can you give them that? I can try. She tilted her head. Trying was all I ever needed back then. But you chose easy. He said nothing. I won't open the door for you, Julian, she whispered. Not this time. If you want to be their father, you're going to have to knock. Every single day. For as long as it takes. Then she turned, gathered the boys, and left. Would you knock every day if it meant undoing the biggest mistake of your life? Drop a comment. Has someone ever left you and tried to come back? Did you let them? Why or why not? The lawyer's office smelled like mahogany, old secrets, and fresh paper. Selena sat on one end of the long conference table, hands folded, her sons reading quietly on the leather sofa nearby. Julian stood on the other end, stiff in his chair, silence stretching too long between them. He hadn't expected to see her again so soon. But the lawyer, Reginald's lifelong advisor, a soft-spoken man named Cyril, had called them both in for an urgent clause in the will that required shared review. The twist? Reginald had left something to the boys. Something big. Julian looked at Cyril, then at the 3 children. He knew. Selena nodded, voice low. He always knew. The clause was simple but impossible to ignore. To my grandchildren, though they do not yet bear my name, I leave the lake house in Alder Creek, to be held in joint guardianship between their mother, Selena Rose, and my son, Julian Hartwell, under the condition that they visit the home together at least once per year until they turn 18. Julian sat back in his chair, stunned. He tied us together? Selena narrowed her eyes. He didn't trust you not to disappear again. Cyril cleared his throat. There's more. Of course there was. You'll need to sign off on the transition of property in person. Together, Cyril explained. Reginald scheduled the handover to happen this week. It's a ceremonial tradition. Hartwell legacy properties always involve family visitation at the time of transfer. Julian blinked. You mean we have to go there? Yes, for 48 hours. Selena stood up. No, absolutely not. The will is clear, Cyril replied, calmly. It's this weekend or the property goes to a trust, and the boys get nothing. Selena's voice dropped. That man left everything but an escape plan. Julian looked at her. You think I want to do this? I don't care what you want, Julian, she said. I care what they deserve. Micah looked up from the sofa. Is this about the house with the lake? Mommy, I want to go see it. Matthew chimed in. Yeah, Mr. Cyril said there's canoes. Selena closed her eyes. A long, slow exhale. She was cornered, and Reginald, bless his meddling soul, had known she would be. 2 days later, they arrived at Alder Creek. It was colder than she remembered. Mist rolled over the lake, like a ghost crawling across glass. The trees bowed slightly, quiet witnesses to the unresolved. The lake house stood tall, elegant but weathered. Ivy clung to its sides. A swing creaked from the porch. The boys ran ahead, already claiming rooms and racing down hallways. Julian stood beside her on the porch, hands shoved into his coat pockets. "It's just 48 hours," she muttered. He gave a nod. 48 hours too long. Inside, memories clung to the walls. Selena hadn't been here since before everything fell apart. She remembered dancing in the kitchen, barefoot, to old jazz with Reginald pouring wine and Julian chasing her like a lovesick fool. Now the silence was deafening. The boys discovered a room filled with antique books and war medals, Reginald's private study. They asked a million questions. Julian tried to answer some, fumbling through half-remembered stories. Matthew pointed at an old photo on the wall. "Is that you, sir?" Julian stared at it. He was barely 21 in the picture, standing beside Reginald, full of arrogance, hungry for the world. "Yeah," he said, "that was me, a long time ago." That night, the boys fell asleep easily. The lake air worked its magic. Selena curled up in the study, reading an old journal Reginald had left behind. His entries were blunt, full of wit and disappointment. Julian has everything but soul, and if he doesn't find it, he'll lose the only woman who ever gave him one. She closed the journal slowly. The door creaked open. Julian, he hesitated, eyes scanning the room. "Couldn't sleep either?" "No," she said. "Memories don't sleep well here." He chuckled bitterly. "You ever wonder what would have happened if I hadn't left?" "No," she lied, "because I live with the result every day." They ended up outside, wrapped in coats on the dock. Silence sat between them like a third person. Neither rushed to fill it. Julian looked out over the water. "You know, I never thought I'd be the kind of man who could walk away from someone like you, but I did." She didn't answer. "I was scared," he said, "of being ordinary, of needing someone." "Love isn't a weakness," Selena said softly. "You ran because you thought vulnerability made you small. But it's what makes us real." The dock creaked beneath them. He turned to her. "I don't know how to fix it." "You don't," she replied. "Not with me. Maybe with them." Suddenly, a cry from inside. "Micah! Nightmare!" Selena ran first, but Julian was right behind her. They reached his room together. The boy was sitting up, trembling, whispering about someone drowning in the lake. Julian sat on the bed beside him. Hey, you're safe. It was just a dream." Micah blinked at him. "You smell like the man in the picture." Julian smiled faintly. "That's 'cause that man's part of me." Micah's brow furrowed. "Are you our uncle or something?" Selena froze. Julian looked at her. She gave a tiny nod, permission or warning. He couldn't tell. "No," he said gently. "Something like a dad. I think." Micah's eyes widened. "Cool." And just like that, he lay back down. Selena leaned in to tuck him in, her fingers brushing Julian's hand. Neither pulled away. If someone starts showing up after years of absence, should they be given a chance? Or are some bridges never meant to be rebuilt? Share your thoughts. Could you spend 48 hours with the one who broke you if it meant healing your kids? Rain began to fall at dawn. Soft, persistent, and cold. The kind of rain that soaked into bones and made the lake steam like a cauldron. Selena stood at the wide kitchen window, watching mist cling to the trees. In the soft glow of early morning, the lake house felt like a haunted photograph. She stirred her tea absent-mindedly, the same way she used to when she lived here, before everything collapsed. Behind her, Julian's footsteps were quiet. "You always drank tea in the morning," he said. She didn't turn around. "Not everything changes." A beat of silence. "I found something last night," he added, "in Dad's study." Now she turned. He held a folded letter, its edges worn and yellowed by time. He handed it to her. Selena took it slowly, recognition flashing in her eyes. It was hers. A letter she had written years ago. 8 years, to be exact. Sealed but never sent. The words still raw, the handwriting slightly uneven. She unfolded it. Her own voice, from another lifetime, spilled out onto the page. Julian, I'm pregnant. I didn't want to tell you like this. But you left, and I didn't know how to find the right words anymore. I'm scared, not of being a mother. I think I'll be okay there, but of doing it without you, without your laugh, without your hands, without your apology. I'm not writing this to beg. I'm writing this because one day, when you realize what you gave up, I want you to know I tried to let you in, but you didn't knock. Selena, she folded it again, her hands trembling. I wrote that the night I found out I was carrying them, she said softly. Reginald came by 2 days later. He saw the test on the counter. I broke down. He didn't say much, just held me while I cried. Julian sat down slowly, the letter still imprinted on his mind. He took the letter, she continued, said he'd give it to you if he ever thought you were ready. Julian looked at her. I wasn't. No, you weren't. The lake house was darker then. Selena was thinner, more tired, but still fierce. She rocked 2 of the babies while one screamed in a crib behind her. Reginald arrived unannounced. He stood at the door with grocery bags in one hand and a bottle of wine in the other. He didn't speak, just walked in, rolled up his sleeves, and started chopping vegetables. Later that night, as the babies slept, Selena cried over the sink while he dried dishes. You shouldn't have to do this alone, he said. She looked at him. He didn't even ask if I was okay. Reginald placed a steady hand on her shoulder. He was raised in power. He never learned how to love like it cost something. She whispered, Then why did I? Julian was silent for a long time. You always made me feel like I could be more, he said. And I ran because I wasn't ready to face who I was without you. She sighed. You think a man who leaves because he's scared deserves a second chance? Julian looked at her, eyes rimmed red. I think a man who's still scared but chooses to stay, maybe he earns one. Later that afternoon, the boys found a dusty box in the attic labeled J+S. They ran downstairs, triumphant. Mom, there's pictures. Selena sat cross-legged on the rug as they dumped the box. Polaroids fluttered everywhere. Sunny smiles, picnic shots, a photo of Julian holding her while she laughed so hard her eyes were closed. Julian crouched beside them. Where'd you get these? From the top shelf. It was hidden behind a suitcase. Micah said. The boys passed photos around, laughing. Then Milo held one up. You look like Mommy's boyfriend in this. Julian's heart clenched. Selena reached for it. A photo of him and her under the stars, tangled in a blanket, eyes closed, foreheads touching. Julian smiled softly. That was a good night. Selena didn't argue. That evening, they lit a fire. The boys were curled up in front of the hearth, half asleep in blankets. Julian sat across from Selena, sipping cider. Do you remember what Dad used to say when he got too deep into his whiskey? Julian asked. Pride is the prettiest masked cowardice ever wore, she said instantly. They both laughed. Quiet, broken laughter laced with shared memory. Maybe I was too proud to tell you I was scared, he said, and too much of a coward to fix it. Selena stared into the fire. Maybe. He looked at her. Do you still love me? A long pause. Then, I never stopped. That's the problem. Can time heal the wounds of betrayal? Or does it just bury them until the past forces you to look again? Comment below. Should Selena give in to the love that never died? Or protect the peace she built without it? The next morning arrived slowly, wrapped in fog and birdsong. Selena woke up to the soft murmur of laughter outside. For a second, she panicked, motherly instinct sharp as a knife. But when she looked out the window, what she saw wasn't danger. It was something far more disarming. Julian was sitting by the edge of the dock with the boys, barefoot, jeans rolled up, teaching them how to skip stones across the lake. Matthew leaned into his side, asking questions. Micah counted the skips. Milo launched one that splashed instead of skipped, and Julian pretended to be horrified. "Fish probably think it's breakfast now," he said. The boys howled with laughter. Selena rested her forehead against the window pane and closed her eyes. It was a beautiful kind of ache. At breakfast, the boys buzzed with energy. "Can we go canoeing today?" "Daddy, Julian said we could." "Mom, do you even know how to paddle?" Selena froze at the word, Daddy, and Julian froze too. Micah corrected himself immediately, cheeks red. Sorry, that's what Matthew said, not me." Julian's eyes met hers over the kitchen counter. He didn't smile, didn't gloat. He just looked, humbled. Selena simply nodded. Canoes after breakfast, but life jackets first. Later, on the water, the sun broke through the clouds for the first time in 2 days. Selena sat at the back of the canoe while Julian paddled in front. The triplets were in a separate one, tethered with a rope to theirs. They shrieked every time the boat rocked. "You okay back there?" Julian called. "I was a varsity rower in college." She replied, "Right. I forgot you used to be good at everything." She laughed, genuinely this time, "Except for giving you." The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable. He turned, sweat clinging to his temples. "Do you remember the last time we were on this lake?" "Yes." She smiled faintly. "We had just moved in. I told you I was scared of deep water. You pretended we were being chased by pirates to distract me." He chuckled. "I still have the scar from when you hit me with the paddle." She looked at him, and I still have the photo from that day. That afternoon, they found an old record player in the study. One of the triplets, Matthew, was fascinated. "What is it?" he asked, pointing at the spinning vinyl. "It's music," Julian said, "from For Streaming Ruined Romance." He dropped the needle, and an old jazz tune filled the room. Slow, warm, rich. The same one they used to dance to in the kitchen. Selena's eyes widened. "You kept this?" He shrugged. "Some ghosts are worth keeping." Micah and Milo started to dance clumsily, giggling and spinning in circles. Julian extended a hand to Selena. She hesitated, just long enough for him to notice. But then she took it, and for the first time in nearly a decade, they danced again. There was no crowd, no pretense, just two people who once knew each other's hearts by memory. Later, as the boys napped, they sat on the porch, wrapped in separate blankets, watching the lake turn gold. "I always thought healing would look like silence," Selena said, "but it feels loud, like everything I buried is rushing back all at once." Julian nodded. "You deserve quiet." She looked at him. "So do you? But not the kind that keeps you from trying." He turned toward her. "I want to be better." "You're late." "I know. But..." She hesitated and then looked down at her hands. "I see you trying. And maybe that counts for something." The sun dipped lower. The triplets woke from their naps and joined them with a soccer ball. Soon Julian was sprinting across the lawn, barefoot again, being chased by 3 miniature versions of himself. Selena laughed from the porch, holding her tea with both hands. For a moment, it felt like they were a family. Not perfect, not mended, but possible. That night, while tucking the boys in, Micah looked at Julian seriously. "Are you staying?" Julian swallowed. "I want to, if your mom lets me." Micah nodded. "You're better than I thought you'd be. Not cooler, but better." Julian chuckled. "I'll take it." Outside the room, Selena stood in the hallway, having heard every word. She didn't stop him, didn't send him away. She simply whispered, "Good night," and left the door open. "Absolutely. Here is..." The following morning began too perfect. Sunlight warmed the lake house floors. The boys were still asleep, curled like commas in their blankets. The coffee was strong. Selena was humming in the kitchen. Julian thought, for the briefest, most dangerous moment, that maybe, just maybe, this was the start of something whole again. But peace built on fragile hope rarely holds. The crash came in the form of Vivian, unannounced, dressed in all black, red lipstick, designer rage. Her heels clicked like thunder across the polished floor as she stormed into the lake house, phone in hand, hair perfectly styled. Julian froze mid-step on the staircase. Vivian? What the hell? How did you even? I tracked your calendar, she spat. You left it open on the cloud. Must have forgotten that when you went off to play lumberjack daddy. Selena stepped into the foyer, calm but steel-eyed. You need to leave. Vivian turned, laughing coldly. Oh, honey, you don't get to throw me out of property that belongs to my husband. Julian cut in, his voice tense. Vivian, please, this isn't the time. Oh, really? Because it looks like you've got time for bonfires in memory lane, she snapped. You slept here, didn't you? Selena didn't flinch. Julian stepped forward. Nothing happened. Vivian looked from him to Selena. It doesn't have to. You think I don't see it? You're unraveling everything for some illusion of redemption. She turned to Selena again. What exactly are you hoping for here? A second chance? A ring? He left you once. He'll do it again. That's what men like him do. Selena's voice was soft, but deadly. You don't know me. And clearly, you don't know him anymore either. The triplets came down the stairs then, sleepy-eyed, rubbing their faces. Micah held a stuffed frog. Matthew blinked slowly. Milo stopped short at the sight of the tension. Mom. Micah asked, What's happening? Vivian stared at them, her gaze bouncing from one boy to the next. Then she laughed. Oh my God, it's true. All this time they're his. Selena stepped in front of the boys instinctively, shielding them. Vivian's voice was low, venomous. You never even told him. You just waited until it would hurt the most. Julian's voice cut through the room like a blade. That's enough. Vivian turned, stunned. I mean it, he said quieter now. You need to leave. Vivian's mouth dropped open. Betrayal etched across her flawless features. You're choosing her? After everything? No, he said. I'm choosing my children. And just like that, the silence was complete. Vivian's heels echoed through the house as she stormed out. But the damage had already been done. Selena turned to Julian, jaw tight. You didn't tell her? He looked confused. I didn't think she'd even... You didn't think, period, she snapped. You let her show up here, around my children, in their safe place. I didn't mean... And what exactly are we, Julian? Huh? Are you still married? Are we just playing pretend? Building sandcastles on someone else's beach. The words landed like slaps. I'm leaving, she said. Now. The boys watched her, wide-eyed. No. Selena, please. Julian tried to reach for her, but she stepped back. You don't get to beg now, she whispered. Not when I already taught myself to stop needing you. She packed in 10 minutes. The boys didn't understand. They asked questions. Are we going back home already? But what about the canoes? Did we do something wrong? Julian stood helpless in the foyer as she zipped the final bag. You said you wanted to be here, she murmured. But being here for the good days doesn't make you a father. His voice cracked. I am trying. And I'm tired of being the one who carries all the consequences, she replied. Maybe your father believed in you, but I need more than belief. I need presence. I need proof. She turned to the boys. Come on, loves. Let's go. They obeyed, slowly. Confused. Hurt. Julian followed them out to the car. As they buckled in, he dropped to one knee beside the door. Matthew wouldn't look at him. Micah clutched his stuffed frog. Milo stared out the window. I don't deserve your forgiveness, Julian said, voice shaking. But I'll earn your time. If it takes the rest of my life, I'll prove I should have never left, and that I'll never leave again. Selena's hands tightened on the wheel. She didn't speak. The door shut. The engine started. And then they were gone. Julian stood in the driveway, alone, as the taillights disappeared. He turned and looked at the lake house. The silence now was different. Not peaceful. Hollow. He walked back inside, back to the room where the jazz still sat on the record player. The coffee had gone cold, and the photos from yesterday's laughter still lay scattered on the table. And he finally understood. This was what it felt like to be left. What hurts more, leaving or being left behind? And how do you know if you've truly changed in time to matter again? Let us know. Was Selena right to walk away again? Or should she have stayed long enough to see if he'd fight for them? The lake house was painfully quiet now. No footsteps thudding down the stairs. No laughter echoing across the porch. No questions, no chaos, no life. Julian sat in Reginald's old study, the fire cold in the hearth. The box of Polaroids lay open in his lap. Photos fanned across the floor like shattered moments he could never get back. He picked one up. Selena laughing, his arm wrapped around her waist. Sunset behind them. They were kids, and he was a fool. Across the city, Selena sat on the floor of her small living room. The triplets were quiet, too quiet, each curled up in different corners of the apartment. Their duffel bags sat unpacked. The air smelled like dust and disappointment. Micah had cried in the car. Milo refused to eat dinner. Matthew hadn't said a word since they walked through the door. Selena stared at the envelope she'd never mailed. The original letter to Julian, now creased and ghost-heavy. She pressed it against her chest. Was she right to leave again? Or just terrified of being wrong twice? Julian wandered the lake house like a ghost. He opened drawers, flipped through Reginald's notes, searching for something, anything. At last, he found a sealed envelope taped beneath the desk drawer. It was addressed in his father's careful handwriting. To my son, if you're alone. He tore it open. Inside, a single page. Julian, by now, I suspect you ruined what mattered most. I don't say this to hurt you. I say this because men like us are trained to win, not love. You need to know, love is not a prize. It's not something to conquer or protect. It's something you serve. Selena was never perfect, but she was honest. She loved you without caution. That kind of love is the rarest kind. If you ever lose her, and I imagine you will, ask yourself one question. Are you willing to live the rest of your life not trying? If not, get up, go. Fix it. Dad. Julian dropped the letter, hands shaking. His answer came instantly. He ran. Selena sat on the couch, knees pulled to her chest, when a knock echoed through the apartment. She didn't move. Another knock, and then a third. So soft, so familiar. She almost mistook it for memory. She opened the door. Julian stood there, out of breath, hair damp from rain, eyes wild with something more than regret. Hope, don't slam it yet, he said, hands raised in surrender. Just hear me out. She leaned against the frame. You shouldn't be here. I need to be here, he said. Not for me, for them, for you, for the version of us I left when I thought ambition mattered more than meaning. She looked away. What do you want, Julian? I want to knock, he said. Every day, like you wrote. I want to knock until the door opens again. I want to know their favorite cereal and what they're afraid of and which one talks in his sleep. You're still married, she whispered. I filed this morning, he said. Papers are in motion. I should have done it years ago. Her lip trembled. What if I'm still angry? Then I'll sit in your anger with you, he said gently, until we both figure out how to move past it. A long pause. Selena, he breathed, voice cracking. I don't want to win you. I want to deserve you. She stepped back. He didn't follow. She pointed to the living room floor, where the boys sat quietly, eyes wide. If you're going to do this, she said softly, start with them. Julian's throat tightened. Okay. He knelt. 3 boys stared at him, uncertain. Hi, he said gently. I'm Julian, and I've made a lot of mistakes. But if you'll let me, I'd like to try being the man you can count on. Silence. Then Micah walked up, placed his frog in Julian's lap, and said, You can borrow this if you promise not to leave. Julian choked on his breath. I promise, he whispered. Matthew offered a nod. Milo grinned. Selena watched from the doorway, heart cracking open. Maybe this was how healing began. Not in fireworks, but in frog plushies and whispered promises. If someone shows up at your door, not with excuses, but with honesty, would you let them in? Drop a comment. Would you give Julian one more chance? Or is love only love when it's right the first time? Absolutely. Here's the final act. 3 months later, the lake house looked different. The ivy had been trimmed back. The windows gleamed. A new swing hung on the porch. Laughter spilled through the halls like sunlight. Julian stood on the dock, skipping stones again, this time with all three boys lined up beside him, cheering whenever one skipped more than twice. Selena watched from the porch, a mug in her hands, a quiet smile tugging at her lips. This time, there was no weight on her shoulders, no wondering, no waiting, just watching. The man she once loved becoming the father her boys had dreamed of, becoming the man he was supposed to be all along. It hadn't been easy. In fact, it had been brutal. Julian didn't just show up once and hope for grace. He knocked, every day, sometimes literally, sometimes figuratively, with calls, drawings, frog plushie returns, school drop-offs, apologies. He attended every game, even the ones the boys lost by a mile. He showed up for dentist appointments and spelling tests and nightmares. He listened more than he spoke. He never asked to be called Dad. But one day, Matthew said it anyway, by accident, and no one corrected him. Now, the lake house was theirs, not just inherited, not just haunted by ghosts of better days, but theirs. Selena walked down the path toward the dock. Julian turned, as if he could feel her coming now. She held out the last photo from the Polaroid box, the one they'd taken the day they'd moved in, arms wrapped around each other, barefoot in the grass. "We should make a new one," she said. "Same pose, same everything." He smiled, "Except this time, maybe with shoes." She laughed. "We've walked through too much to go barefoot again." They took the photo that afternoon. Micah, Milo, and Matthew stood in front, smiling with sticky fingers from lemonade. Selena and Julian stood behind them, his arm cautiously around her shoulder. Her hand rested lightly on his waist. A camera timer clicked, and the past finally gave way to the present. Later that evening, as the sun dropped below the trees, Julian found Selena alone in the kitchen, cleaning up spilled juice. He leaned against the counter. "You know what your mom used to say?" She raised a brow. "Which part?" "The heart doesn't keep score. It keeps rhythm." She smiled faintly. "She also said you could be a fool and still be in love, just not at the same time." He stepped closer. "Which one am I now?" She met his eyes and kissed him, soft, steady, like a decision, not a risk. When they pulled apart, she whispered, "I don't know what the future looks like, but I know I want to build it with someone who fought for the pieces." Julian rested his forehead against hers. "I'm not leaving again. Not ever." "I know," she said, "because this time you knocked." The boys ran to the backyard, chasing fireflies with glass jars. The record player played the same old jazz tune from years before. Julian and Selena sat on the porch steps, watching their sons twirl and scream and live. Selena leaned her head on his shoulder. Julian wrapped his arm around her. The lake shimmered, stars winking above them. The photo they'd taken earlier sat framed on the side table inside, and just above it, in Reginald's handwriting from a torn journal page, a quote was pinned to the wall. "You don't lose love by leaving. You lose it when you stop returning."
Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.